my channel. In this video, we are going to learn on what happens when we turn on our computer. That is, here we are going to take an overview of how the operating system is loaded. It all starts from the power button, that when we turn on the power button, the circuit closes the motherboard. The motherboard contains a component called as embedded controller. The embedded controller, upon receiving a signal, it sends a PS on signal to the power supply unit. The power supply unit does an important task. It waits till the voltage is fluctuating. Its main task is to convert the AC voltage into the DC voltage. Now I have a question, that why the devices connected within the motherboard uses a DC voltage and not a AC voltage. Okay, you can comment the answer below. So it sends a power good signal, that is power okay signal, to the CPU. Upon receiving a signal as PWR underscore okay, the CPU awakes. It starts reading instruction from the reset vector, which usually points to the ROM, where our BIOS code is present. It simply contains a jump instruction. Jump instruction that tells the CPU to go to the beginning of the BIOS code. The BIOS, we often called it as a firmware. This is another question that you can answer, that why BIOS is a firmware, not a software, not a hardware, but a firmware. The BIOS stands for Basic Input Output System. It performs many important tasks. The first one is the POST, that is the power on self test. It is a check of all the hardware devices connected to the system. That is, CPU is okay. Still the CPU is running, but it is going to look for the internal registers that they are working properly. Before showing text into the screen, it is going to look for a video card so that they can load their own BIOS. It writes data into the RAM address and reads data from the RAM address to check the RAM is working properly. The BIOS scans for the bus, the peripheral component, interconnect, and peripheral component interconnect express. It also does a BIOS shadowing. A BIOS shadowing means, since the BIOS code is present and it is executing from the flash chip, it is going to copy its code from the flash chip into the RAM. The RAM now contains the BIOS code. Now the next thing here, till this point the hardware of the system has been checked and they has been identified that they are working properly. Now the next thing that is left is looking for our operating system. All the hardwares has been confirmed. Now it's time to find the software, the operating system. So how it looks, the BIOS reads from the RAM a sequence. And what is this RAM? This is a CMOS RAM. It is a battery packed memory chip. It is a battery packed memory chip that contains settings including the boot sequence. Example, it can be a floppy, CD-ROM and hard disk. The BIOS reads this list to know which devices to check first. It uses a magic number to identify any bootable device. And how it does? It simply uses an instruction or internal function, that is int13s, to identify the magic number in this sequence. Now suppose this particular magic number is found in a hard disk. Okay, so this is our hard disk. So in this hard disk, since once the bootable device has been identified, it reads the first sector, which is often called as a master boot record. The master boot record contains a MBR code and a partition table. Since a hard disk can have various partitions, so this partition table contains the starting and ending address of these partitions. Okay, it contains the starting and the ending address of these partitions. The only job of the MPR code is to look for the active partition, and what we are calling here as active partition, the partition that contains the operating system. Now every partition contains a boot block, whether the operating system is present or not. because the MBR code only locates an active partition. Here in the boot block, it is generally stored the instruction to load the operating system. So finally, the operating system is loaded into the RAM and it takes over the control of the entire system. So this is all about how the operating system is loaded and what happens when we turn on our computer. So the main steps is that the embedded controller receives the PS on signal, the power supply, it reaches the power supply unit. What is the main task of the PSU? The main task is to convert the AC voltage into the DC voltage. Then it sends a power good signal to the CPU. The CPU awakes. It reads the starting instruction, which is stored in the reset vector that points to the ROM. It contains a BIOS code. It performs post that generally the hardwares are being confirmed that they are working properly. The BIOS code is being shadowed, that is copied into the RAM. It looks for a bootable sequence. The BIOS reads this list to know which device to check first. It looks for some magic number, and upon identifying a bootable device, there is a MBR contained in for that disk, which contains a partition table as well as a code that is going to find an active partition, and this is the partition where our operating system is stored. And the boot block in this partition knows how to load the operating system into the RAM. So this is all about this.